Welcome back. Well, let's get a special conversation going now. The managements of Radiant Life and Max India held a conference call earlier this morning to discuss details of the merger of Radiant and Max's hospital business. Joining us now is Abhay Soi, Chairman and MD of Radiant Life. Good afternoon, Abhay. Thanks so much for speaking with us. Now, we have discussed the basic details of the merger earlier, but there have been some concerns on the valuations, whether they're actually a little more skewed in favor of Radiant. Can you help us understand how you arrived at that valuation figure of 7,000 crore rupees?
So, over 7,000 crore is essentially a combined value which has been estimated, and the valuation of Radiant is a combination of factors. It's the combination of the valuation at which KKR came in to Radiant. So that's at a valuation of 2,883 crores, and other than that there has been a formula which has been applied by the independent valuers of the two companies, which is E&Y and KPMG as well, whereas valuation has been done on the basis of multiples as well as DCF.
Okay, fair enough. Now, Abhay, what is the consolidated debt on the books of the entity, and what is the plan with respect to this debt going ahead?
So there are two things. I think the consolidated debt on the books of the entity is going to be about 2,200 crores, and as far as the plans for the debt is concerned, obviously we are looking to ramp up the EBITDA margins of the combined entity as well in order to support that debt. So I think in due course we should be in the short to medium term itself, we should be fairly comfortable with in terms of the debt and the debt coverage.
Okay, can you give us some sort of an outlook on consolidated margins? I mean, where do they stand right now, and where should we expect them to be once this whole merger is through?
So at present, our Delhi NCR business is operating at about 16% EBITDA margin. It's a young business. It was a hospital which has been commissioned in 2010. So at a 60% capacity utilization, we are operating at about a 16% EBITDA margin post our corporate overheads and all. As far as Max is concerned, it's in the public space what their present EBITDA margins are. How we are going to be operating at a higher EBITDA margin and in what time frame, for that we'll have to dig in a little deeper, because so far, it being a listed company, there has been, the access to information, at least the operating level metrics, etc., has been limited. But going forward, that's what we are looking to track at.
Okay, now initially the promoter holding, as we understand, is going to be about 82%, and then that will have to of course come down to 75% to comply with regulations. Can you tell us how that's going to happen? Are you already in talks with potential buyers?
So post the merger, post the listing of the company, we need to have a minimum float of about 25% with the public. Like you rightly pointed out, 82% will be there between myself, KKR, and including the 7% which will be with the promoters of Max India Limited. And between the three of us, there is an inter se understanding that we will be in ratio, in proportion of a shareholding, we will be selling down 7% of the holding. So it's not necessarily dilutive to the shareholders. Essentially, we will be using KKR's reach to reach institutional shareholders and perhaps do block placements at that point in time.
Okay, fair enough. So, when can we expect the sell down to actually take place? Do you have some timelines in mind that you can share?
So this sell down will have to be post listing itself. So post the merger, post listing, which will be about 8 to 12 months, given all the regulatory clearances that we require. It will be done subsequent to that.
Let's talk about capex and future plans then. Do you have a figure in mind? Are you looking at brownfield or greenfield expansion? How many more beds do you want to add? And then of course funding for the same.
So there is significant amount of capex, brownfield capex within the two entities, whereas in in the case of Max, Max Smart is something which is going to be expanded significantly by putting up another 600 to 700 beds over there. We are looking at expanding the capacity of Nanavati in Bombay, by about another 5 to 550 beds, and Delhi BLK by 200 beds. Now, essentially, what this gives us is a very unique positioning in perhaps the two best micro markets, metros in India, and micro markets within those metros. That is South Delhi as well as Juhu in Mumbai. The lands are already available with us. The land banks are there. So it will essentially be a brownfield expansion, unlike a greenfield expansion, which is done at significantly lower cost, because brownfield don't usually have operating losses at startup, because it's basically increasing the capacity in a phased manner. So we are looking forward to this capex. Now, both this capex is going to be done over the period of next 4 to 5 years. We believe it can be done through a judicious mix of internal accruals itself, other than whatever leverage we require to raise to support this expansion. But really, we are creating those assets in Delhi and Bombay.
Okay, fair enough. What are the kind of operational synergies we can expect, and by when do you think some of this will start flowing through?
So I think there are plenty of operational synergies that one can look forward to, and especially in the NCR region, whether it's respect to the clinical programs, the reach our doctors have, and so on and so forth. Other than that, if I look at from a marketing standpoint, the international marketing piece at BLK, 25 to 30% of our revenues come through international marketing. And given the fact that we are, our enterprises are based primarily in metros, it would help us in the international marketing and so on. So that's one part. Attracting doctors, having focused clinical programs, having, anchoring certain hospitals with stronger specialities of a certain nature, whereas others can have complementary skills and so on. So I think whether it's the top line or whether it is the bottom line, at present, if you look at the Max network, as far as variable cost management is concerned, they do it far better than Radiant. They have a 200 to 300 basis points advantage over there. But whereas the fixed cost management is concerned, Radiant does it in a manner which is exponentially better than Max. So which is another 300 to 400 basis points over there. So putting this together should be able to give a significant amount of synergies going forward. Again, the approach, the investment in technology, the allocation of technologies within metros is more similar to tier 2, tier 3 cities. So, there are a lot of operational synergies between the two enterprises.
Okay, Abhay, we'll leave it on that note for today. Thanks very much, and thank you for giving us details of the business plan as you see it going forward. Let's move on now and talk about some news that's coming in for the IT